Hey everyone, Ronin here, and welcome back to the channel. We got a lot to cover in today's part, but before we get into that, we got to shout out the patron as always. So, Dragonfold Geezers, thank you very much for the support over on Patreon. And also, everyone, analytics are very important, so please make sure to check out these stats below, and don't forget to drop a like and a comment to help fuel that algorithm. And if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing so that way you'll never miss another upload from the channel. And if you want to support us even further, please consider becoming a YouTube channel member or a patron. You get exclusive access to content that I don't post here on the normal channel, and you also get early access when I do. But with all that being said, let's get into What If I Wrote the Pokemon Anime Part 22. I hope you enjoy. We begin today's episode with Ash, Misty, and Brock as they are on their way to the site of Ash's next gym badge, but unfortunately the group has come to a stop after being forced to leave Cerulean City rather abruptly. After Misty's newest evolution, Gyarados decided that it wanted to take out its frustration on her family members just as Misty had right before it evolved. Unfortunately, this has put our group in a predicament as Brock didn't get a chance to really restock on any type of supplies before they left Cerulean City, as Misty had forced them to leave so quickly. So now they're in the middle of the forest trying to find their way around, looking for any sign of civilization so that way they could at least get off the road and figure out exactly where they need to go next, as they only have a general direction on where they're heading to, and that's the gym in Saffron City. This is where we pick up with our heroes as Brock is tending to Togepi while Misty and Ash are in the middle of arguing over the whole situation that happened back at the Cerulean gym, with Ash kind of poking fun at Misty, stating that at least he could actually beat her sisters and prove that he was the better trainer. It took her Gyarados freaking out, causing her sisters to forfeit in the pursuit of saving their own lives. But like the fury of the serpent, Misty retorts back, yelling at Ash and stating that he has no idea what he is talking about. He could have beaten them easily. And unfortunately, this same line of argument goes around and around in circles. However, it only seems to be preoccupying these two, as Brock, as well as the rest of the group's Pokemon, are all kind of off doing their own thing. So while the humans are doing what they need to do, we pick up with the Pokemon, in particularly Charmeleon and Bulbasaur. You see, in the time since Charmeleon has evolved, it's kind of become the strongest Pokemon that any of the trainers have access to. And because of that, it's developed quite the chip on its shoulder as it sees itself above everyone else. Even Nidorina, who is normally super aggressive, especially towards Pikachu, tries to steer clear of Charmeleon in an attempt to make sure that it doesn't become the next victim of what could be considered its immense strength. However, there is one among the group that really doesn't take too kindly to Charmeleon's attitude, and that's Bulbasaur. If you remember, Bulbasaur joined Ash on his journey because it had sort of a kinship with Charmander, but ever since Charmander evolved into Charmeleon, it's sort of been treating Bulbasaur like a second-class citizen, as if the grass type could never understand the amount of power that Charmeleon has to deal with. Kinda like it's been burdened with glorious purpose that only Charmeleon itself could ever understand. And because it's practically been undefeated in any Pokemon battle that it's been in since its evolution, this has led to a scuffle between Bulbasaur and Charmeleon on more than a few times. But each time, the result is the same. The first stage grass starter is overtaken by Charmeleon rather easily, with little to no effort. That is, when Charmeleon chooses to engage it in battle, as sometimes it'll just simply ignore Bulbasaur and go off and do its own thing. As we see Bulbasaur chastising Charmeleon for laying around and being lazy, it seems to be a very heated one-side debate, as Bulbasaur isn't too happy with the way Charmeleon has been progressing. It used to be all about getting stronger, but the moment that it gained this new power, it's completely shrugged off any type of training that it would ever do with any of the other Pokemon, or even Ash for that matter. This seems to have been taken personally by Bulbasaur. However, Charmeleon simply just doesn't care, and it chooses to ignore the grass type, as like previously stated, that it sees Bulbasaur inferior to itself because of the amount of power difference between the two. But Bulbasaur isn't going to be one to let this sit idly by, as it chooses to unleash a barrage of Vine Whips to slap Charmeleon around a little bit. While they don't necessarily hurt the mid-stage evolution, they do cause a bit of irritation to boil between the two, eventually triggering a reaction from the Fire Lizard, to which Charmeleon unleashes a flame flamethrower in an attempt to roast Bulbasaur. However, the grass type does have one thing on its side, and that is speed, as it is able to easily dodge this and maneuver itself in a position to where it can kind of bind Charmeleon from behind, using its vines to tie shut its snout as well as its arms, so that way Charmeleon can't really go anywhere. While this is a bit of a struggle for the fire lizard, the fact of the matter is there's one thing that Bulbasaur couldn't tie down, and it was its feet, and this allows Charmeleon to use its larger size to begin to drag Bulbasaur towards a tree before Charmeleon spins, causing Bulbasaur to lose its footing that it had as it begins to catch air before it slams into the side of a massive tree trunk, releasing Charmeleon from its grasp as it lays there, a bit stunned from the shock that it just enveloped. Charmeleon looks on and lets out a brief flame from its mouth before simply turning and walking away to signify that Bulbasaur is never going to be as strong as it. This entire encounter has captured the attention of all of the other Pokemon, and it's even stopped Misty and Ash from arguing, as the boy is forced to run over to make sure that Bulbasaur is alright. However, just as Ash kneels down, the group is happened upon by a very rugged looking man who seems like he's been lost in this forest for what seems to be forever. However, the man is simply a hiker that was out here looking for some powerful Pokemon to add to his team. However, instead he found our heroes and their Pokemon, to which the hiker had the privilege of seeing the entire exchange between Charmeleon and Bulbasaur, stating that Ash's fire type seems like it's a bit more powerful for the boy to handle. Judging by the way Charmeleon acts with Ash's Pokemon, he highly doubts that the boy could ever control the power of the mid-stage. This triggers Ash, stating that he would be able to battle with Charmeleon just fine. After all, it's his Pokemon. And then Ash asks how the hiker would like to prove this theory in an actual Pokemon battle, to which the hiker is quick to accept this Pokemon battle, as he has a Pokemon that he would like to test the power of as well. This causes Ash to call to Charmeleon, asking it to come over and battle. However, the fire lizard, who is now lounging on the top of a rock, seemingly ignores Ash, not even cracking an eyelid at this request. This causes the boy to have a bit of an outburst, demanding that Charmeleon come over at this instant. They have a Pokemon battle that they need to do, and this hiker thinks that it and Ash can't work together. But once again, it doesn't get any response from Charmeleon, which causes the hiker to begin to laugh. It looks like what I said is true, and that seems to be the only really powerful Pokemon among the ones that you have. Well, it looks like I'll have to get a good battle somewhere else, the hiker says. However, just as the burly man begins to leave, this is where Bulbasaur steps forward, as it is a bit angered by the entire exchange between it and Charmeleon earlier, and the fact that this hiker is insinuating that none of Ash's other Pokemon could actually battle at the level that this hiker is insinuating that he is at. This causes the burly man to turn around as he stares at the grass starter. So, you think you have what it takes to beat my partner, the man says, to which Bulba just merely stares into the soul of the hiker, confidence and determination plastered across its face. This is where Ash immediately turns his attention to his grass starter, stating that he doesn't need Charmeleon. Bulbasaur is more than enough to take down any threat or challenge that comes their way. While the hiker finds their tenacity and vigor very refreshing, the fact of the matter is, he doesn't seem to have the same belief that Ash and Bulbasaur have, stating that the two just don't seem like they're exactly what he's looking for. However, just as the hiker turns to leave, Bulbasaur shoots a vine out that blocks the burly man, almost to say that he's not going to get out of here without having a battle with the two of them. This agitates the hiker a little bit. However, since Bulbasaur is so determined to have a battle, he's not going to turn it down a second time. Pulling a Pokeball from his belt, he states, "Just remember, you're the one who wanted this." However, Ash and Bulbasaur seem rather confident in their abilities to actually battle, to which Ash responds, "Oh, don't worry about us. We're more than happy to beat you in a battle," as Bulbasaur seconds this with a brief Bulba, for it joins its trainer's side, as the hiker has walked down a little bit to give them enough space for their Pokemon battle. After all, they're going to need it for the Pokemon that he's sending in, as a Rhyhorn pops from its Pokeball with a massive thud on the ground that causes brief tremors to shake the entire area. The weight of this thing is so intense that when its entrance happens, it even manages to get Charmeleon to crack an eyelid, as it's quite curious to what this Rhyhorn could do in a battle. Both Misty and Brock tell Ash and Bulbasaur to be careful. There's something off about this Rhyhorn. It seems to be a very high level. However, Ash is slight overconfidence in this scenario is going to be his downfall, as he merely brushes off his friend's warning as he tells Bulbasaur to get ready. They're going to take this win. The hiker merely chuckles, giving Ash the first move, to which Ash wastes no time in calling for a tackle attack. However, this is merely countered with a double edge from the Rhyhorn that easily overpowers Bulbasaur and sends it sliding back into the same tree that Charmeleon had swung it into before. However, the little grass toad is not done yet, as it pulls itself up by its bootstraps and prepares to charge another attack at the command of Ash in a Razor Leaf. But unfortunately for it, this too is going to be thrown aside when the hiker commands a Rock Blast from Rhyhorn that tears through the leaves and strikes Bulbasaur once again, repeatedly hitting it into the tree 1, 2, 3, 4 before the attack subsides and Bulbasaur keels over with spirals in its eyes, leaving Ash just standing there completely speechless about what just happened. There's no way Bulbasaur lost that easily. However, the hiker chuckles, stating that I'm afraid it is that easy. You see, I told you that your Bulbasaur wouldn't be powerful enough. Well, it looks like seeing how you don't have any other Pokemon that could stand up to me, I'm going to take my leave now. Maybe you should spend a little bit more time working with your Pokemon, and we can have another battle someday. The hiker then tells his Rhyhorn that they need to get going before they both turn to take their leave. However, this is going to be stopped when a flame spreads around the entire exit that they were trying to make, as Charmeleon has now stood up from its rock and is interested in taking on this would-be worthy opponent. Turning, the hiker cracks a smile. So, it appears that your fire type has finally got enthusiastic about having a battle. So, what do you say? Maybe it could do a lot better than your little bean sprout over there. Ash doesn't like the tone that this hiker has taken, or the fact that he just insulted Bulbasaur, and this causes him to begin to see red, nearly completely forgetting about the grass type, as Squirtle, Pikachu, and Butterfree all tend to it, trying to help it regain consciousness, while Brock and Misty rush to their side in an attempt to offer any aid that they can. However, while Ash sees this from his peripheral, he has blinders on, and his only focus is taking on this Rhyhorn, as Charmeleon has now stepped down from its perch and taken a position right in front of Ash as if it's ready to take a command from its trainer, to which Ash immediately acknowledges by ordering a flamethrower. However, Charmeleon completely ignores its trainer just like it has in the past, in favor of rushing in for close hand-to-hand combat with a flurry of Metal Claws. However, the hiker is feeling rather confident, and it orders another double edge from his Rhyhorn in an attempt to stave off Charmeleon's attacks. However, this is where Charmeleon's going to prove just how powerful it is, as it has not only speed and power on its size, but cunning, as it's able to use its slightly smaller frame to use the momentum of Rhyhorn to its advantage by gripping the ground type by the horn that is on its face and driving it into the ground using its own momentum before using the other Metal Claw to strike it right behind the head in what seems to be a vulnerable spot. This is super effective, and while Charmeleon doesn't share the steel typing, the fact that Metal Claw is a steel type attack means that Rhyhorn is going to be left in a severe amount of hurt, and this is shown when it tries to stand back up, but it's wobbly on all fours as it's dazed and confused while the hiker calls for it to get it together. They barely started this battle, so it needs to use a Rock Blast to take down Charmeleon. However, the Fire Lizard is way too quick for Rhyhorn to react, as it takes advantage of the brief millisecond opening that Rhyhorn used to come back to its senses to get in close and land another Metal Claw. But this time, this is directly to the chin of the behemoth that has enough power to send it toppling back end over end until it hits a tree, just like Bulbasaur had only mere moments before. As this is happening, the grass type is beginning to come to, as its vision is a bit blurry, but it can make out what seems to be a very one-sided battle between Charmeleon and the Rhyhorn. The first thing that comes into focus for Bulbasaur is Charmeleon bringing this battle to an end when it grabs Rhyhorn by the face and fires a Dragon Rage, point blank, knocking it out and bringing this battle to an end. Then Bulbasaur pans over to Ash, to which the boy the whole time was telling Charmeleon different commands and how it should attack, but the Fire Lizard just ignored, in favor of proving its own self-worth and power, to which it was able to easily do. Now satisfied that it has proven its strength, Charmeleon drops Rhyhorn at the feet of the hiker before letting out a brief flame and walking back to its perch to lay down once again and take another nap. This leaves the hiker completely stunned. Boy, you need to do something about that Pokemon. It's way too savage to be used in battles. You couldn't control it, and because of that, I'm not taking this as a loss. You're the one who lost due to disqualification because of the way that it attacked my Pokemon unfairly. However, this is merely a coping mechanism for the hiker, as his ego has been a bit bruised before recalling his Rhyhorn and telling Ash that Charmeleon is going to end up costing him one one day before he storms off in search of the Pokemon Center that our heroes were searching for before the battle had begun. This whole interaction has caused pandemonium and chaos as Misty and Brock are trying to tend to Bulbasaur while Ash is berating Charmeleon, who seems to merely just be ignoring the boy with its eyes closed as it sleeps atop of its rock. This gets to the point to where Ash gets extremely close and up into its face, to which the boy is merely met with a flamethrower that roasts him, dropping Ash as he merely lets out a puff of smoke, telling Charmeleon that he can't act like that. This is where Misty yells at Ash to stop screwing around. Bulbasaur needs some help. Realizing that this issue with Charmeleon is going to have to wait, Ash comes back to his senses and recalls the fire lizard so that way he can tend to what Bulbasaur needs. However, just as it seems like everything is going to be okay, as Bulbasaur stands up, its vision goes blurry again and it collapses, leaving all three of the trainers and the rest of the Pokemon in panic. Realizing that they need to find that Pokemon Center, Ash recalls Bulbasaur and the rest of his Pokemon as well as the others. They then bolt off in the direction that the hiker had headed, hoping that the burly man knew the direction that he was going. It takes some time, but eventually, by nightfall, our heroes end up finding the Pokemon Center, to which they're able to get inside quick and find Nurse Joy. However, she's going to be tending to the hiker's Rhyhorn that Charmeleon had made a fool of only mere hours earlier. Luckily for our hero, she's just about wrapped up with Rhyhorn, and she's able to look at Ash's Bulbasaur. Luckily for the boy, the damage that it took is merely superficial. After a couple of days rest, it's going to be up and functioning just fine. It just took a bit of too many lumps back to back. This is a big relief for our heroes, especially Ash. The boy feels a bit guilty for focusing solely in on what was going on with Charmeleon and nearly forgetting about Bulbasaur, to which the boy apologizes as the first stage lays in its bed. However, Bulbasaur is unresponsive to Ash's pleas and apologies, to which Ash takes personally, like Bulbasaur may be mad at it. However, it's not that. It's the fact that the grass starter is mad at itself. How could it have been so outmatched between Charmeleon and Rhyhorn? Its pride has been damaged, and it's going to take some time for Bulbasaur to get over that, to which Nurse Joy suggests that the boy just let Bulbasaur rest. In the morning, it should be back to its old self, though it might be moving a bit slow. Ash agrees, and he decides that it's time for them to get something to eat, as Brock, Misty, and himself haven't really eaten anything since they left Cerulean City in such a hurry. The boy tells his grass starter that he'll be back in a little while. He's going to get some food, and then he'll just sit here and wait until Bulbasaur is ready to talk to Ash, before shutting the door, leaving the grass starter to look out the window into the full moon that is in the night sky. This is where we find Ash, Misty, Brock, and Pikachu all sitting in the cafeteria eating, as they are trying to contemplate their next direction to travel. Ash knows that they need to get to Saffron City. That's the site of his 7th badge. He's so close to getting all 8, he can almost taste it. However, they need to deal with the issue of Bulbasaur at first, to which Brock simply seconds what Nurse Joy said about giving it time to rest. They're in no rush. The league is still months off, and they have plenty of time to get Ash's last 2 badges. It's more important that they give Bulbasaur the time it needs to recover. Ash wants to respond to this, but they're going to be interrupted when that very annoying hiker comes to their table and begins to start up another dispute with Ash about his Pokemon and his ability to actually raise them as a good trainer. The hiker accuses our hero of being a hack, stating that the boy has no idea what he's doing, and the fact that his Charmeleon refused to listen to him is proof to that. Then the Pokemon that do listen to him are super weak. It's obvious the Pokemon that Ash has been prioritizing on his team, and he hasn't really done anything to train with the others. He's far from a well-rounded trainer himself, and because of it, his Pokemon are going to suffer sometime down the line in a battle. This immediately fires Ash up as he begins to argue back and forth with the hiker, telling the old man that he doesn't know what he is talking about. Ash is a far better trainer than he is. After all, he managed to win the battle, but the hiker merely points out that's his point. He only won because Charmeleon was his Pokemon. If Ash didn't have Charmeleon, then there's no way he would have been able to beat Rhyhorn. But unfortunately, this is a man-child arguing with an actual child, and it's just going to go in circles, as Brock, Misty, and Pikachu watch on, while Togepi merely eats its food, happy at the sweets that Brock has prepared for it. But unfortunately, this argument isn't going to get the chance to last forever, as a scuffle can be heard coming from within the Pokemon Center that is rather loud. While this normally wouldn't concern Ash, the fact that it's coming from the direction of Bulbasaur's room is what concerns our hero, so he takes off running, leaving the hiker to continue yelling that the boy has no idea what he's doing and someone's going to get hurt. But Ash has only one thought on his mind, hoping that Bulbasaur is okay. However, as the boy arrives to Bulbasaur's room with Brock and Misty in tow, what they see is a sight that they weren't expecting. The bed that Bulbasaur was in is turned over and the windows are open. Ash wonders if something attacked attack the grass starter, to which Brock says it might have been possible, but maybe Bulbasaur just couldn't take it, and it decided to let out its frustration before getting out of the Pokemon Center. This is where Nurse Joy comes in, completely flabbergasted about the state of the room, to which Brock and Ash immediately apologize, stating that they will clean this mess up. However, Bulbasaur has gone missing. The nurse tells the two not to worry about it. Bulbasaur is still too hurt to be out and about, so they need to go find it and get it back here. If they don't, then they run the risk of Bulbasaur hurting itself permanently. Understanding the tone that this carries from Nurse Joy, Ash, Misty, and Brock immediately get dressed before heading out into the night, looking for any signs of Bulbasaur's tracks. However, they don't see anything that would be reminiscent of the first stage tracks, but they do see something leading away from the window that was in Bulbasaur's room. Something a little bit more girthy in its weight as the footprints head deep into the forest. They don't know what it is, but it's clear that this is what took Bulbasaur, to which Brock points out they need to be careful. Agreeing with his friend, Ash decides to send out Butterfree so that way it can lead the way. Whatever this thing is that attacked Bulbasaur, Butterfree may be able to pick up on it before it's able to attack them, to which Brock agrees is a good idea. So with their plan now set, they head into the forest as quick as they can, but as carefully as possible, making sure not to draw any attention to themselves that is unwanted, considering they don't know what they are dealing with. It takes what seems like hours, but eventually Brock, Misty, Ash, and Butterfree are able to make their way through the densely packed foliage and find themselves in a clearing. However, this clearing is not empty. What they see is something that is very odd to them. In it are a massive army of Ivysaur, the second stage evolution to Bulbasaur, and one of them at the forefront of this horde is carrying Bulbasaur in its vines as the first stage struggles to get out. Seeing as first stage wince in pain as it struggles to break free, Ash immediately wants to step in, but is stopped by Brock, telling him to hold on. There is another problem that they're going to have to worry about. The breeder then points to the head of the group, as from within the shadows steps something that Ash has only ever seen on TV. A hulking behemoth of this third stage evolution of the Bulbasaur line, Venusaur. The grass toad lets out a mighty cry of its name as every one of the Ivysaur bow to him. It appears to be their leader, Brock says. We need to be very careful. We don't know what we're dealing with here, and for whatever reason, they have captured your Bulbasaur. So we need to make sure we approach this with as much caution as possible, or it could get rather ugly. Having an idea, Ash decides that this is the perfect chance to use Butterfree. He tells the bug type to fly around within the forest and uses confusion to cause rustling in the surrounding areas to try and draw the attention of every one of them. While that's going on, we will sneak around the other side and we will try to free Bulbasaur without drawing attention to ourselves. Realizing this is their best option, they all agree, as Ash states that he would rather go after Bulbasaur alone, so that way they don't draw that much attention, while Misty and Brock provide cover for Butterfree as it completes its assigned task. With everybody understanding their goals, they all break up, with Ash and Pikachu heading around the south side of the clearing, while Misty, Brock, and Butterfree head to the north and the east, so that way they can draw the attention away from Ash. It doesn't take long for things to start shifting as the attention of the Ivysaur and Venusaur are drawn to the exact direction that Ash was hoping, leaving him and Pikachu a little bit of an opening to sneak up and get close to the Ivysaur that is holding his Bulbasaur, as it has now made its way to the back of the herd as they have all moved into the direction of the sounds that are being made, almost as if they are preventing whatever it is from coming for Bulbasaur. While this seems to be a good plan at first, there's one thing that Ash, Misty, and Brock had all overlooked. This is the forest of Venusaur, and it knows when something isn't right, immediately picking up on the fact that there is something in their ranks that shouldn't be here, as it lets out a mighty cry, and all of the Ivysaur stop in their place, causing Ash to freeze, as he knows that their cover has been blown, to which the boy is immediately confirmed true in his suspicions, as they all turn about face to see both Ash and Pikachu attempting to grab Bulbasaur from the vines of the Ivysaur that was holding it. Suddenly, a percussion of cries are let out from all of the grass types as they begin to attack the boy. This causes Pikachu to immediately begin to engage in battle, to which Ash also calls on both Squirtle and, oddly enough, Nidorina in an attempt to try to defend himself from all of these attacks. But unfortunately, Nidorina is more engaged in the fact that now that Charmeleon's not around, it can kind of bully Pikachu. So the poison type decides that this is going to be its pastime for the current moment, and this puts a damper on their plans, as Pikachu is forced to dodge a double kick from Nidorina arena, but is caught in a storm of razor leaves from a small group of Ivysaur that rendered the electric mouse unable to battle. Realizing that they don't have time for this, Ash immediately recalls Nidorina, as it's not going to play ball. But this is where he turns only to see that Squirtle has been met with the same fate as Pikachu, leaving it unable to battle, being overpowered by these grass types. Now, with all of their attention on Ash and Bulbasaur struggling to get free, the boy can do nothing but recall Squirtle and grab Pikachu as he stands there staring down a barrage of razor leaves that are coming his way. But luckily, both Misty and Brock are able to intercept this with Onix and Staryu, as well as Butterfree appearing to help Ash out. But unfortunately, this is only going to be minimal help, as the Ivysaur just merely outnumber every one of the trainers, taking out their ace Pokemon as well as Butterfree rather quickly before Ash could even call for a sleep powder. This puts them all in a very precarious position, as Ash realizes he's going to be forced to use the one Pokemon that he was hoping not to resort to. But if he wants to get any ground in getting out of here, then he's going to have to do it, as he calls on Charmeleon. With the fire lizard popping from the ball, it takes a look around, liking what it sees. An army of Pokemon for it to test its strength against. And at the helm is a third final evolution. Charmeleon immediately knows that it wants to battle Venusaur, but it's going to have to get through this army of Ivysaur in order to do it, to which Ash tells it that they need to get Bulbasaur back, so he commands it to use a flamethrower. However, the fire lizard has no interest in obeying the trainer and ignores Ash's commands as well as the plights of Bulbasaur in favor of knocking out as many of the Venusaur as he can in the path leading to Venusaur. While these Ivysaur seem to be very powerful, the fact of the matter is Charmeleon just proves to be that much more powerful, as it takes each one that challenges it down one by one until it's cut a swath through the crowd and made its way to their leader. At this point, the sun has begun to caress over the forest as Ivysaur stares down Charmeleon, to which the fire lizard looks confidently in its eyes as if to say that it doesn't see the giant grass toad as a threat, and Charmeleon is going to prove it here. The fire type begins to charge a flamethrower. However, the one thing that it hadn't realized that Ash and the rest of our heroes had, as they are farther away and can see what was happening, Venusaur was gathering some sort of energy in the bulb in its back as Charmeleon was cutting a path to it. So before the fire lizard could even let out a burst of flames, it is engulfed with a solar beam that sends it careening into one of the trees right behind everyone. However, this isn't the end, as the power is so great, Charmeleon is pushed through the first tree and sent into the second tree before the beam dissipates and Venusaur lets out a very victorious cry, followed by all of its subordinates as the Ivysaur join in. But this is going to be short-lived, as Bulbasaur struggles to break free from the holds of the Vine Whip. A massive flamethrower cuts through every one of the Venusaur as they turn to see that Charmeleon is still standing and is glowing in a fiery aura. The mid-stage starter has activated its ability, Blaze, and it intends to use this newfound boost in power to completely decimate every one of its challengers, which is exactly what it does as another flamethrower cuts through the entire path. As fear begins to set in among the Ivysaur, Bulbasaur uses this as an opportunity to finally break the grasp on itself, merely getting free seconds before the flamethrower engulfs the Ivysaur that was holding it. This leaves just Venusaur, as it is now angered that Charmeleon has done this to every one of its subordinates. Now furious, the third stage evolution begins to charge with all of its weight in the direction of Charmeleon, firing razor leaves that have no effect as a flamethrower makes quick work of them. The fire lizard charges in and begins to engage with Venusaur using its much smaller frame in order to do battle and give it the edge needed over Venusaur, as the grass type can't quite get a hold on Charmeleon. Even its vines are unable to grapple it, as a very quick flamethrower causes them to wilt under the heat before recoiling at the pain that it causes Venusaur. Charmeleon seems to have gone rabid as it unleashes a flurry of metal claws, flamethrowers, and dragon rages that slowly wither Venusaur down until it's merely a husk of its former self, laying there with its leaves on its back charred, with Charmeleon standing victorious over it, ready to unleash a final flamethrower. This is where Ash is brought to his senses when Misty and Brock both tell him that he needs to recall Charmeleon before it does something that they can't undo. The boy immediately pulls out the Pokeball. However, Charmeleon simply shrugs it off, aiming its first flamethrower at Ash, forcing the boy to jump out of the way, causing him to drop the ball, and to plead with Charmeleon to stop this. There's no point in attacking anymore, it's already proven its strength. However, the fire lizard wants to make sure that this statement is clear. All who challenge it will be brought down. However, As Charmeleon begins to unleash its final flamethrower on the Venusaur, Bulbasaur immediately shoots another Vine Whip around its snout, preventing the flames from escaping, causing Charmeleon to look over at the first stage, almost as if to say, "You dare challenge me once again? Well, prepare to find out the result will not change." However, Bulbasaur is not okay with how Charmeleon is acting. It is abusing the strength that it has gained, and it doesn't sit right with the first stage, and its frustration with its friend has caused something in it to boil over, as Bulbasaur lets out a cry of its name before it begins to glow in an evolutionary light. This causes shock to plaster across everyone's face, including Charmeleon, as from the light emerges the second more powerful stage, Ivysaur. However, Charmeleon doesn't see this as a problem, as it begins to try the same maneuver that it did before, by using its weight and momentum to lift Ivysaur and to slam it into a tree. But this time, things are going to be far different, as the mid-stage has gained a little bit of girth and a little bit more power, as it uses a second vine, binding its claws and its arms together so that way it can't do anything. All Charmeleon can do is struggle about trying to break free, but Ivysaur reels in the fire type, knowing that they need to put this thing to an end. But unfortunately, it's going to have to make quick work of this, as Charmeleon is trying to charge its mouth with a flamethrower, and it's heating up the vines that are wrapped around its snout, causing Ivysaur to begin to lose its grip. However, the grass type is quickly able to put an end to this, as it holds Charmeleon above itself before unleashing a volley of sleep powder in order to cause the fire type to snooze off to La La Land, just like it likes to do whenever it's not interested in participating in any type of group events or activity. Now limp in the vines of Venusaur, the grass type sets Charmeleon down before retracting its vines. This is where it lets out a cry of its name to Ash, signaling that the boy needs to recall it. Jumping over to the Pokeball, Ash immediately recalls Charmeleon to prevent any further damage to the entire area before trying to come to terms with everything that had just happened. This is where Venusaur and the other Ivysaur that can still move begin to stand up as they circle around Ash and his new mid-stage grass starter. This is encompassed by a silent momentary stare down from everyone as Ivysaur stares back at the Venusaur before letting out a cry of its name. Looking around at the destruction that Charmeleon had caused, Venusaur decides to relent, as it is in no condition to continue to try and battle, and it would rather not risk any more damage to any one of its subjects before it lets out a cry of its name, ordering all of them back into the forest from which they came, leaving Ash, Misty, Pikachu, Brock, and Ivysaur all standing there, contemplating what just happened. But the trainer isn't going to let silence befall them for long, as he kneels down to Ivysaur and pats it on its head. "I'm sorry that I put you in a position like that before, but thank you for saving me and all of the other Pokemon." Ivysaur simply lets out a cry of its name before using its vines to grab Ash around the waist and lift it above its head as if it accepts Ash's apology, and it begins to run around with Ash in tow. However, it winces a bit, as even though the evolution has occurred, it still hasn't fully recovered from all of the damage it had taken the day before. This causes their brief celebration to come to an end, as Ash tells Ivysaur that they're going to get it back to the Pokemon Center so it can get the rest that it needs, before recalling it to its ball and thanking it one final time. All the while, in his other hand, Ash holds the ball to Charmeleon, wondering what exactly he's going to be able to do about his overcrazed fire lizard. Now that the events with our heroes have come to a close, we shift perspectives over to Saffron City. Well, not exactly Saffron City, more like the tallest building in Saffron City, a place known as Silphco. In the tallest floor of the building sits a man we know as Giovanni, as he looks down over the city and muses about the unsuspecting citizens inside of this great empire that he has built. Soon, he says, all the pieces will be in place, and the supreme domination of Team Rocket will begin its expansion across the rest of the world. This is where an intercom chimes in, as Matori tells Giovanni that his appointment has arrived, to which the champion tells him to send her in. As the door opens, the champion turns, only to greet one of his members of the Elite Four. "Agatha, we have a lot to discuss, and this is where we are going to bring things to an end for now. So tell me, how did you feel about this part and the events that happened with Ash and all of his Pokemon?" Charmeleon is proving to be quite difficult, as it gets more and more unruly by the day. All the while, Ash's other Pokemon seem to fear it, except for his newly evolved Ivysaur. How about that evolution? Did you enjoy it? And do you think it's going to prove to be instrumental in Ash's ability to get through to Charmeleon, or is it going to drive a wedge further between the Fire Lizard and its new trainer? And what about Giovanni and this building building Silphco and his meeting with Agatha. What does that have to do with the events that are going to happen soon? And how is his and Team Rocket's presence in Saffron City going to affect the journey for our heroes when they finally reach there in an attempt for Ash to get his 7th badge? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Alright trainers, I hope you have your Pokédexes ready, because the Pokemon that we met today was Venusaur.